All right. Well, I will start the introduction. So welcome back to our UI Assist webinars. Today we have a webinar on Power the Press and the Public, Connecting Electrical Engineering to the World. And our speaker today is Geoffrey Thatcher, who is a master's student in the Murrow College of Communication, working with UI Assist to help with communication goals, education, and research. His master's research focuses on science communication and the way in which technology interacts with how people communicate. So I'll turn it over to Geoffrey, and if you have questions, please put them in the chat.
Thanks, Noel. I appreciate it. Let's get the presentation up. So I'll go ahead and skip the introduction slide because Noel did such a great job of introducing me there. As she said, I focus a lot on looking at media, technology, and politics, but looking a lot at technology has brought me onto the UI Assist project and working with Noel. The 3 planks of the RA ship and the work that I'm doing here looks at embedding myself in communications and making sure to get day-to-day communications operations out there underway, providing workshops and seminars, much like today, and then performing collaborative research. For the topics of today, though, what we want to talk about is communication updates as far as the impact to the program in UI Assist, going over our communication strategy going into the next few months, and then talking about tips for press success. So to start with, we have our social media profiles up and running on Twitter and LinkedIn. We're working with India to make our Indian partners to make sure that we don't have any duplicates and that we're really getting behind both of these social media identities to bolster the brand and promote all of the stories we have. We're also doing story generation like tech topics, research focused, and grad student focused articles. So on the social media side, I really wanted to put up these numbers to show not only is it just us liking our own information, there are, excuse me. Apologies. So as I was pointing out, there are people from outside of education and research. There's civil engineering, management, and consulting. We have people coming from multiple different industry demographics reaching onto our site. And you can see at the bottom here of this slide an extraordinary growth of page views, interactions, and visitors. Now, we wanted to create a new website, one, because Washington State needed us to change and go ahead and create a new website for branding purposes and updating of the brand. What we wanted to do with this new website was give us a space to create our own content and be able to drive content without relying on the press. In a normal kind of situation, what you would usually do is put out press releases or press packets and really hope that somebody picks it up and allows us to promote our message and content. What we're doing with the website, though, is it allows us to put on our own content, our own articles, whether it's written by me, Joey, or someone else. We can put all of those updates and all of the messages that we want to put up there and host it on our own service without necessarily relying on a press platform. And so the biggest thing here is that big or small, whether or not it's accepted by a journal or a magazine or another media format, we can promote all of the great work we're doing. So here's a couple of the example articles. So this is one that's grad student focused, focusing on Ali Khan and the scholarship he got from IEEE, as well as one that's focused on Sanjeev. And so over the course of the last few months, we've been producing articles like this. There's a couple that are still undergoing editing and reviewing, and myself and another colleague named Joey are working on producing these articles. And we've seen a lot of interaction and engagement with them. So what's our strategy moving forward? Well, we want to continue hitting social media really hard. While this is for thoracic surgery and not electrical engineering, I think just this visual abstract that's provided shows really the impact that having social media communication can do on the changes in citations and the citation strength of work in any field, not just thoracic surgery. And you can see that just simply tweeting out your message gets it into the world and gets it cited more and read more. And if we can continue to do that by bolstering the UI Assist brand and working with the press and the public, we can see increased citations and increased work going out into the world. So how do I do it? How should you approach the press? How should you interact? What do journalists want and need? How do you put together a press release? And how do you write a feature articles? These are all things that people go and get degrees at schools for. It's a whole communications degree. So how can we make it so that you can just get into the express lane and be doing these items yourself, right? So on the same website, we're setting up a resource guide and a resource depot for everyone to be able to pull templates, guides, examples, and be able to submit all within the website. So you'll see this grid over here on the website, break down what is a press release, how do I put together a press release. I would like a template so I can be able to plug in the certain components that I need to make a successful press release. And then what does a good press release look like so that I can make a comparison to know that my press release or press packet are doing well. We believe that having these templates, guides, and examples will really help bolster the ability of anybody to generate articles and interact with the press on their own. And then we also wanted to make it very streamlined for people to submit any content, whether it's social media or story ideas or articles directly to us so that we can make sure those stories are getting developed if you're not able to generate the story yourself for whatever reason. We can look at what it would look like to have that generated by someone else. So to dig into the mind of a journalist a little bit and discuss what it's like to live as a journalist. Since we skipped the introduction slide, I was a journalist for 5 years, working as a multimedia journalist across 4 different platforms, web, print, television, and radio. One of the things that's very critical is that it's deadline driven. Of 5 p.m., you got to get to print time, you got to get to the broadcast time. There's always a deadline going. So timing's critical. Everything's driven by a pitch meeting. If you go into a newsroom in the morning, what you're going to be seeing is this giant morning meeting when everybody's pitching ideas and having their ideas scrutinized and prioritized by editors. And so it's really important for a journalist on, say, a science beat to be interacting with their sources and saying like, oh, I have the newest information on grid security, or I have a source that's willing to tell me about how electric cards can plug into two-way interaction on the grid, and be able to pitch that story idea to make it into the pitch meeting, and so that way they don't have to work off their beat or take a editor priority. Finally, it's relational. One of the hardest things about being a journalist is finding sources and being able to continue to interact with those sources on a consistent basis. So when I was working as a journalist, you have your set sources that you know are reliable, that you can trust, and being there for journalists, even when the story's not necessarily about you and your research, but being able to provide a quote or two and contextualize the situation might be a great way for those for you to build those relations. If you're talking as a qualified expert on things to journalists, then they'll come around more often and they'll put your press release at the top of the pile because they know that you're good for the information you're providing, as well as that you're providing quality stories that can continue to be done. So things to consider when you're pitching. First, who's your audience? Who are we writing this article for? are you talking to legislators? Are you trying to put a report together for legislators, or are you trying to interact with the general public? We always have a joke of you wouldn't talk to a political leader the same way you would talk to children. And so you want to make sure that you're tailoring your messages correctly to the audience that you're delivering to. And so whether that's academics, the general public, legislative, regulatory bodies, or industry, you need to tailor that your message so that way it's impactful for whomever is going to be receiving the message. Additionally, you need to know which media format you're going into. The requirements for print are a lot lower than the requirements for web or television. So like television might be the best media format to really show off what you're doing. But in that case, you need to approach it with a multimedia perspective and be ready to have ideas for what can be shown visually to bring in that kind of to bring that element of media to the forefront. Finally, length. How long is this article going to be? Is it going to be short and under 200 words? That's something that's going to be better for a press release. Or are we doing like a feature article that we're wanting to show up in a newspaper or a magazine and have it be the dominant like front page story? That's going to be over 800 words and require a lot of exposition and a lot of writing and a lot of supporting interviews and interactions. That's going to be a very large press packet. So it really runs the gamut depending on which aspects of the of your story you're trying to do. Finally, timing. So as I alluded to earlier, deadlines are a critical aspect of a journalist's life. And one thing that a journalist always has to consider is what is the timely, what makes this news? Why is it timely? Why is this something I should put in front of readers? How is it news? Because if it's 3 months old, then why should anybody be reading it when there could be something that's going on today that's far more interesting? And so being able to sit and reflect and say, are we previewing an event? Are we announcing an event is going? Are we announcing an event with a speakers list or an agenda? Or are we talking about a project that's developing and developed? Or are we talking about an event that just happened, that like a bill just passed Congress that's going to provide a ton of money into infrastructure and power engineering? And what does that look like for power engineers in industry? Or reflecting on an event when that bill is years old, how efficient were those funds distributed? Or was it something where it was earmarked for too much of one aspect of technological innovation, but not enough of another? And providing kind of that reflective element. So there needs to be a thought about what's the news hook on that timing? Why is it relevant to people today? Why should I be reading this today in the newspaper? Finally, types of pitches. So a press release is going to be constrained down to a few paragraphs and primarily address the 5 W's and an H. And for those of you who aren't aware of the 5 W's and an H, that's who, what, when, where, why, and how. Just the bare bones kind of information and maybe like a quote about how excited you are or something to give a little bit of information. This can help journalists fill in column inches or fill in areas of their broadcast that they just might need to put in information to fill in 30 minutes. There's plenty of times where sending a press release is beneficial just because at the end of the day, the television newscasters have to fill in 30 minutes. The print news media have to fill in column inches. The web team needs to get clicks. And so your story has a great chance of being written, even if you put in a minimal press release, because there are still needs that need to be met by these teams that just need to feed the content machine. And of course, you want to put in contact information in case they do want to develop the story into something more and longer, or get a more verbose quote. And then On the other side of things is the press packet. It's designed to be a much longer story and be much more involved. It's going to have multiple contacts so that it can help contextualize the story. Because while the story might be primarily about you, there should be some other people in there talking about the areas around the research. To use one example of uh, like Noel's son, Andrew Schultz, he was working on elephants and how their trunks are engineered and getting some information from that. And so he had press packets equipped with information from the zookeepers to help contextualize the research where it's being done and what the information is. So this is a great point when we're developing like microgrids to be able to discuss, hey, here's what it means to the community. Here's some community leader contacts, and those can be your secondary contacts listed there. And so you might have a more involved process of setting up those interviews and being able to make those connections to people in the press and saying, yeah, these are the people that are great to talk to. These are the people involved in the research into the study and into the implementation of the work you're working on. And then it's going to typically involve a lot of multimedia or visual informations. This doesn't have to necessarily be pictures and video, though. It can be a lot of infographics and data integration and making sure that we're showing a lot of visual information to help break up kind of the visual monotony of text on a screen. There's a whole nother like webinar for making compelling data visuals, but we'll have to save that for later. So to talk about our goals going forward, what we want to do is decentralize content creation. Much like I hear you guys discuss about the power grid, decentralizing generation helps us be more stable and reliable. So instead of generating power, we're generating articles. By having more articles come up, one, that's press training, press practice for you guys to make sure to get that kind of industry experience and get that experience under your belt so that when you're interacting with the press in your career, you have that practice and those repetitions to be able to succeed. We want to centralize these media appearances though, so that way we're all echoing each other in unison. That if you show up on a podcast, for instance, we want to promote that. We want to talk about how excellent you are, and we want to make our platform very centralized so that everybody can find us all in the one place, and that all of the news that's being generated from all of our wonderful teams, they're all going out and being sent out to our audience, which is growing and seems to be very loyal. And then we want to continue to communicate our successes. So if you are on a podcast, if you are represented in like the school's newspaper or in the school's newsletters, we want to hear about that and we want to be able to promote that and communicate those successes consistently. So our goal for decentralized content generation is we would like to see our partner institutions each generate over the next 3 months a tech topic, talking about the areas of research. So for instance, storage. What is storage to a layman? How would you describe storage to your grandmother? Or how would you describe a microgrid to your cousin? How would you go about making it accessible to them, but still informing them? We also want to talk about you guys. We want to talk about research profiles. One of our most engaging articles was the one that I showed earlier about Sanjeev. People love you guys and want to hear more about you and want to be more engaged in the your guys' passions and hear more about you specifically as a person and a researcher. And so we think highlighting that is going to be a wonderful thing. And then finally, we want to highlight the grad students and the graduate student work that they're doing. How, what are your hopes and dreams? Where do you see yourself going? And this is a wonderful opportunity to, build the CV and talk about, okay, yes, I had interactions with internal press production and internal communication specialist. And this is an article about who I am and what I am. So when you're applying either in academia or industry, you can be able to say, yeah, here's something that's about me. Here's a way to get to know me, and we can promote that kind of workforce development. Finally, we're going to be doing articles that focus on a lot of our collaboration of how the institutions mingle together and looking at kind of the higher level collaboration. This is one of the hopes of having a decentralized article generation, is that it will free up the time for Joey and I to, while we'll continue to produce these articles, we'll be producing some of these articles as well, of looking at the bigger picture and how UI Assist functions between the institutions, and doing a lot of these interviews. That's going to take quite a bit of time. We're going to make an appearance at the December meeting in India and have more updates for everyone then, talking about everything that we've done, and how things continue to develop. We're also going to be working on getting some feature stories developed and put into industrial magazines in a collaboration with Gary from Burns and McDonnell. And those are all things that we hope to accomplish in the next 3 months and be ready to present in December. So I know that's quite a lot, and that doesn't even begin to cover all of the bases of like what it means to interact with the press, but hopefully is a good primer. I do want to open things up for questions and be able to address those, and get everybody's opinions and curiosity and discussion going.
So Geoffrey, I have a question. So I'm an engineer and I don't do this very much. How do I get started if if you said, let's say you said, no, we want you to write an article about your research, and then we're going to work with you to put some quotes and talk about it and integrate it. What's the way I would get started so I could help you move forward at that, or writing that? Could you talk a little bit about how do I get started on that?
Yeah, so let's go back to the slide where this one that we talked about, the resources page that we're generating onto this new website, right? That's where we want you to get started. One of the things we did here is that if you look down here right at this like link survey, that's a way to get in touch with me instantly without you guys having to remember how to spell my ridiculous name or what my email is. And so that's a wonderful way to get in touch with me if you have any like extant questions. It's a kind of just multiple inbox like way to communicate with me, and we'll be sending out the links to this website, and having more information about this soon. And then you would start with the press release guides, and that will take you step by step of like, here's what to consider as you're building these press releases. These elements that we went through, that's going to be in there talking about, is the short or long? Well, then you might want to go with the press packet if it's too long. And it will take you down kind of like one of those choose your own adventure books, and branching narratives, and take you through the journey of going to that. And if you do ever have questions, there's just that quick way to reach out to me, and be able to discuss the issues and say like, okay, I'm stuck on this. Could you clarify this little bit of a point here? I don't understand what's necessarily going on. And then I'd also say like reading these articles and kind of analyzing how Joey and I put them together is a great way to do it. So one of the things to like discuss just as a quick thing is that in the first paragraph, the standard like news is that the first 2 paragraphs of any news story are almost always the same, regardless of story. If the first one's an interesting hook, an interesting way to just grab people's attention, and then the second paragraph is always just a quick 1 paragraph, maybe 2 sentences. Tell me what's going on here. Tell me like the details of the story, all within that. If you go to not just Joey and my stories, but if you go to CNN, New York Times, they're all very structured in this way, and have those first 2 paragraphs. After that, it you're free to kind of just explore your own topic after those 2 paragraphs. It may seem daunting, but it's actually something that's very accessible to do.
Geoffrey, can you comment on the target audiences that we're going after?
Yes. Let's see, where did I put my audiences? So at the moment, a lot of our audiences that we're focusing on are industry and general public. We do a really great job of reaching out to academics as well as government and regulatory bodies, and I don't necessarily have a lot of when I first started this project, I actually told Noel, like, there's not a lot of feedback. You guys do that really well. But broadening out our message of how we're getting from lab into the field and how we're interacting with the broader community, and how we're, you know, when somebody asks you, hey, what does UI Assist do for the community? You should be able to take these articles and just show, oh, this is what UI Assist does for the community. These are the wonderful things that we're doing that are actually making a difference in the world, right? We don't want to make those things silent and inaccessible to the communities that we're helping and engaging with. And so reaching out to industry allows us to help those communities at a larger scale because they interact with those communities on a regular basis. And so one implementation in one area might be good for a different implementation for another area. And so having your technological innovations taken from academia and the lab and brought in and partnered with industry and brought into the world, that's an area of opportunity we see that we want to improve upon and improve our communications there, as well as the general public, and making sure the community knows what we're doing and what are some of the benefits. In today's day and age, the power being on is just something that a lot of people take for granted. And most of the discussion about where the grid is going is in the form of generation and renewables, but there's a lot more to the problems of the grid than just those things. And so informing people and getting people to engage with us helps provide that insight and lets people think a little bit more about each of those topics. So I would say currently these 4 that are listed in this slide are all the ones that we're trying to target, but we're specifically trying to improve really well into industry and general public.
Geoffrey, this great presentation. A quick question. Is there a way also when you do the search engines, I mean, when you do UI Assist, it will, I mean, pops up right on top. I mean, those are great. You're doing great work there. Is there a way also, I mean, I'm going to use Gary as an example. So when you type Gary's name, I mean, he pops up on top, but it doesn't link it to UI Assist or Knowles. Is there a way that you can take the key researchers within UI Assist and link it to, so their name and their links will also be associated with UI Assist?
Yeah, so this is actually something we're working on with the India team at the moment. Is we're still having the main uiassist.org site too, right? And that's controlled by our India partners, and it's very research focused and has a lot of our details there. And so we want to make these 2 sites be really harmonic with each other and resonate well with each other, and perform different functions, but still link together and be built off of each other. This one would be a lot of our external facing communications and presenting a lot of our work with it. As far as building out our researchers, that's exactly what we want to do with the research topics, is continue to link the brands together, of being able to say that we did all this wonderful work together, and that you know, Noel's profile can come up on and be linked to UI Assist on the website, and that we improve those search engines functions. And I noticed that Twitter is starting to recognize Knoll's association with UI Assist's profile a lot more. And that's just taking a lot of training of the algorithm. And luckily that's what I research here at WSU is training algorithms and how algorithms disrupt communications flows. But so we need to train that algorithm more by having more of these articles, as well as doing more retweets, likes, and interactions between researchers and UI Assist.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Rob, I'm actually experimenting with that right now. I tried to put UI Assist in my email signature, and my company said, let's not do that. Obviously, they don't want to highlight specific projects in our emails, but what I did was I added the UI Assist follow link that Geoffrey provided on LinkedIn. And so whenever I post articles that I think are related to UI Assist, I can actually, hashtag resiliency, hashtag grid modernization, and then I add the UI Assist follow link as well to my LinkedIn posts. And then when in my data that I get from LinkedIn back, it shows, the interactions you had on your LinkedIn posts, and you can see, which people actually clicked on that link and who didn't. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing, but I know Geoffrey's working on other strategies to help, 10 interactions become 100, 100 become 1,000, 1,000 become 10,000, that sort of thing. And as well as training algorithms to learn, well, if they like this, they may also like UI Assist, right? That's something. So it does take interaction to do that, though, for the algorithm to learn. So the more as a team that we interact, the more the algorithm can start to learn where it should engage. So it's a good question, though.
Yeah.
One specific example for all of the researchers who I know love doing grant applications is the Investment Infrastructure and Jobs Act, which was passed last November. There's quite a few resources available on which grants are available, and I'll do a link, Geoffrey, so everybody can see how I'm going to say, hey, UI Assist was one of the best DOE grants I ever participated in, and if people are looking for grant opportunities, they should go to UI Assist, and I'll give them the link also for the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act link, right? So just little tricks like that, and it takes me 5 minutes to do that, right? It's not a huge investment of my time. So okay.
Yeah, all of that's great. The more we can interact with our social media posts are great. One, that helps spread our message into the friend groups of everybody involved. But two, it starts to associate you with the UI Assist brand and information. So that way, when people are looking for you, they see those credentials being listed when they search for you, and make that connection there. Any other questions? I see.
So Geoffrey, one of the things we have is how do we Gary's talked about LinkedIn, how to tag so to amplify. One of the things, man, maybe we can put a document together that has the link so people can add that to a post if it relates to a paper for UI Assist, or a presentation with UI Assist, or collaboration with UI Assist. And then with Twitter, they can also tag you that, right? They could tag you in the tweet so that you see it and then can amplify it. They can tag me and others. So can you talk a little bit about amplification and how Gary's talked a little bit about that, but what are other opportunities in that?
Yeah, so as I was showing earlier, our brand's actually growing like crazy, right? And so there's a couple ways you can like identify social media posts to me. One, there's the that clickable link on the resources page that you can just click on and it will take you to a Qualtrics survey where you say, hey, Geoffrey, I need XYZ, can you do it? And that's a great way to get in touch with me. The other way is if you just message us on the social media platforms or tag us, like Noel said, one, that reinforces the connection and the communication powder to the algorithm that's on that platform that says, oh, these two people are connected and I need to be sharing information with them. But what it also does is it keeps promoting, is it gets directly a hold of everybody on the team, not just me. So if I happen to be inundated with a research proposal in the communication space or hitting a conference deadline or anything, it will also hit Tiffany and Noel and Sanjeev. And so that way any member of the team can take care of it. It will also hit Joey. So again, so probably the best way if you need something right away to be promoted, which again, we want to promote everything. If you guys win an award, we want to be celebrating it. Is to tag us in the post or message us on the platform and in the post, like message us the post in the platform so that we can see it and take care of it and promote it. And just this week, the post for UI Assist was amplifying Gary's post about the December meeting and his talk going on. And so just being able to reach out and say, hey, this is something that I would love to promote. One of the best things about social media is that it's entirely free. And you can actually post quite a bit without it inundating people. And so there's not really a limit per se on how much we post. If we start to hit a threshold, I'll let everybody know. But that would be a great problem to have. So.
And one of the things, particularly for grad students, that we want to start doing, if you're not doing already, is posting papers, presentations, and some of that on LinkedIn. And if you tag, if you're not on Twitter, but you tag Geoffrey, then he can actually post that on Twitter as well as for people to come to that. So, you know, I think you don't have to be in both platforms. I would guess most of the students are in LinkedIn, may not be on Twitter, but that will help us kind of get a lot of different audiences related to that. And, you know, one of the things we do want to work on in the future, as Geoffrey said, is what we would like to do is take a group of papers in an area. And I always use volt-var control or volt-var optimization, which Geoffrey's still working to understand, but he's going to get an informal master's in power engineering by the time he's done. But we want to get like a group of papers and have a blog post that has those with the references that we can post out there. So someone wants to, if someone Google or someone looks for volt-var control or volt-var optimization, that would come up as a resource on LinkedIn as well as a search. So, you know, those are just things to think about.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll mention is that this is like scratching the surface of press interaction and communication. If you do need help at any time, feel free to reach out, whether that's on social media or through the submission link or emailing me if you can remember my name or through Teams. There's a lot of things we didn't discuss of like data, how to present data in a visually appealing way. How do I make sure that what's a good tool to make sure that my data and graphs aren't unintentionally affecting color blindness and that colorblind individuals can see the data that I'm representing? How do I make it accessible to audiences? Kind of what does graphic design look like? And to that question earlier, how do I brand myself on social media, and which social media aspects should I be looking towards? You know, just in the too long didn't read, it's the, you know, LinkedIn, you want to focus a lot on your industrial strengths, and Twitter is great for academia. Academics love Twitter for some reason. So any other questions?
Okay. Do we have any other questions? All right, so those that may be partner leads, we're going to be reaching out to you to get communications lead that's going to help us with some of these things. Geoffrey, if you want to go back to the next 3 months and what we're doing for the partners. Yeah, so this is one of the things we're going to ask each partner to do is do one story kind of on at least one of the areas that they're doing research in. So for some partners, we may have multiple areas. And then we would like to have we're going to have some templates to fill out, and then an informal interview that Geoffrey or his colleague will do to get a researcher one. And then for those universities, we'd like to get one for at least one graduate student. So this is a minimal what we want. We can always take more of these and promote these, but we're hoping if we can get one of each of these from all the partners, all the universities, all three, and then the top two from the non-universities, then we'll be able to really put a lot of information out there and start to build our database of information that we can share on our impact of UI Assist. All right. Well, thanks, Geoffrey, so much. We really appreciate you in the first week of classes to pull this together. And as Geoffrey said, he's a resource. So if you have additional questions, let us know, and we will get the information to you. And we look forward to really communicating not only to the IEEE PS world, but to the general audiences, the impact of UI Assist. So thanks, everybody.
Real
Yeah,
quick,
go ahead.
sorry. Are we allowed to partner on these stories? Like, can I partner with West Virginia on?
Yeah, yes, yeah, Gary, partnerships are great as well.
Okay.
And we just did these. I think the next slide talks about that, doesn't it?
Sorry.
Yeah, the collaborative article.
Yeah, but that's one of our goals
Okay.
to start to look at too. And so both US and US India partnerships, we'd love to have an article on each of those as well. I know we have a couple interns this summer, one at West Virginia and two at WSU that we could write a short story about. So, but Geoffrey has 10 hours to work on this project. So obviously he can't write everything,
Right.
but if
Yeah.
people can do a draft of kind of the key points, he can help provide suggestions and ask questions on, well, what do you mean by this, to help it make it more general for an audience. And then also one of the other things he can help work in are quotes that you may feel weird doing your own quote if you haven't practiced that before, but it's kind of cool to say, Sanjeev said this or that, and add that as a quote to make it more just more interactive. And then pictures, videos, those are all great as well to help build the story. Geoffrey, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered it all really well. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But there's not really a wrong way to do this. Yeah, the only, I guess, wrong way to do it is not attempting it at all. But we do want to see these articles, and if we have like ideas on how we can improve or develop, we'll provide those ideas as suggestions. But ultimately, still, these articles are something that the more we have, the better, and the more diverse generation, the better. We don't want to be writing just WSU research focus all the time. And so we want to be able to promote everybody as much as possible.
Yeah, and Gary, I think you adding, these are our suggestions, but we are open. If people have other ideas, I know, Gary, you've talked about maybe doing one of the women of UI Assist and talking about some of the women researchers that are part of it. And so there are other ideas people may think of that they want to do. We may do one about the utilities of UI Assist. So, you know, if other people have ideas, the labs at UI Assist, I mean, we can do a ton of different things, but we just want. So, Manny, Venkata, you got a question?
Yeah, a quick question is the intent of this presentation. It's not supposed to go to technical topics like digital communication versus analog communication, and those things are not a part of this whole presentation, right? You know what I mean?
Well, Manny, I think, I mean, we're trying to do both, as Geoffrey said earlier, there are multiple audiences. So we can have somewhere that are more technical. But because we have so many papers that are very technical, we kind of feel we are doing more of that. So if you have one that you think would be good for, you know, a technical one, that's also great. If, you know, Burns and Mac is talking about doing some cybersecurity assessments for some of the India partners. So that might be a good one. We actually have a report that we've done with Burns and Mac that we're looking to put that in. So just lots of different things and that we can do.
Yeah, I
So
think, Manny, it's a great question, because if the article is about some innovative breakthrough that someone made in their research, right, and they're highlighting the PhD student or the professor or whoever, but the main gist of the story is this breakthrough, Noel and I will be reading all those articles, and we would love to get that innovative breakthrough out to industry through, you know, a follow-up presentation to EEI or to the Western Energy Institute. So really, there's an opportunity, if it is a technical article, to leverage it as a speaking opportunity at one of the industry events coming up, and really leverage it. That's a great way to leverage that article into an industry outreach engagement. So I think you bring up a good point, and this is kind of where we would like to go with some of these. Yeah. So
Yeah,
That's
in this kind of situation of like a technical article, we might decide that it's better to put together a press packet for Public Utilities Fortnightly, T&D World, or IEEE Spectrum. It's making those decisions and coming to, is this better for the website? Is this better to team up with like local press around the institution? Or is this something that we want to put out into an industrial magazine? Is this something we want to approach the New York Times with? And so just making those decisions and trying to figure out where things fit. Those are all discussions that this presentation is trying to address. And then the guides will help guide through that kind of decision-making process.
okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
great discussions. Anything else? All right. Thanks, everybody. And there is a theme lead meeting at 11 o'clock Pacific for those that might be interested in that. Our goal is